Hi, everyone. My name is Katie McQuarrie, and I am an MBA admissions consultant with Vantage Point MBA. I am here today to talk to you about how to craft compelling long-term career goals in your MBA application. This is part 2 of a series. I was on here last Wednesday for part 1, where we talked about how to arrive at and communicate strong short-term career goals. So those goals that you're going to set and lay out in your application for what you'd like to do directly post MBA. So we covered off on that last week. I'm sure you can find the recording of that session on the GMAT Club YouTube channel if you'd like to catch up and you didn't make it. But today, we're looking a little further on down the horizon. So I'm just going to take a minute here and share my screen so that you guys can see the presentation I put together, and we'll get started. And at the end too, I will have time for questions. So feel free to ask me anything about the session today, or, if you do have broader MBA application questions, I'll take a few of those as well. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. Give me a sec here. All right, so crafting a compelling long-term vision. So just a little overview of what to expect for today. I'll introduce myself a little bit further, talk to you a little bit about my background. We'll talk a little bit about, what long-term goals are exactly. What are the MBA admissions committees looking for when they, ask for your long-term plans? So that will be where we go next. After that, I will give you 3 guiding principles to make sure you come up with and communicate compelling long-term goals. Everybody can put goals down on paper, but you want to find those that are going to really draw the AdCom in and set you apart from the competition. So we'll talk about those 3 guiding principles, and then we will look at a few examples from past clients of ours that were successful, and we'll sort of talk about how the guiding principles apply to those example goals. And then at the end, as I said, we'll take a little Q&A. All right, so let's get started. So as I said, my name is Katie McQuarrie, and I'm with Vantage Point MBA. We are, sort of a full-scale admissions consulting firm for the top 20 MBA programs, both in the US and Europe mainly. We have experience across, all of those schools, and we are a great team comprised of admissions consultants like me who went to business school themselves. So I did my MBA at Kellogg. We also have people on our team that actually used to sit on the admissions committee at some of these schools. So from Wharton to Booth to Kellogg. So, many of the top programs, we have experts that have that perspective, and we really take a team approach to helping you put your best foot forward with your application. We work both comprehensively, where, we'll work with you from start to finish on specific applications, or hourly. We have a variety of ways we can work together depending on price point and the level of help that each person needs. So a little bit about me. As I said, I went to Kellogg for my MBA. My work experience prior to becoming an admissions consultant, I worked in banking. I also worked in corporate finance and strategy in the CPG space. But I love my work now. I love helping clients, achieve their goals of going to business school and putting their story, helping them put their story down on paper. All right, so enough about me. Let's jump into the content for today. So, as I mentioned, just to kind of recap what we talked about last week. Last week we talked about short-term goals for your MBA applications and how to come up with ones that will resonate with the admissions committee and, help you earn that acceptance. So we talked about that short-term goals, which is the role that you will seek directly after business school, should be specific, realistic, and logical. So, you want to really drill down to the role, the function, the industry you want to work in. It should not be a generic high-level discussion of where you see yourself going. It should be specific, realistic, and then logical based on where you want to go long term, which is what we'll talk about today, and then also where your past experience lies. And we talked about 3 boxes to check to make sure that your short-term goals hit on the things that the admissions committees are looking for. So you want to make sure that the role you target post-MBA is something that employers hire for out of MBA programs. Either they come to campus or do more of an ad hoc recruiting cycle for MBAs for those types of positions. You want to make sure that your target post-MBA role is something that these employers, when they look for MBAs, that it's realistic that they would hire you. So are there prerequisites? Is it tech product management role where they're really looking for people with engineering backgrounds? Do you have that? You want to make sure that they would, it's realistic that they would consider you for these roles. And lastly, and this feeds into what we're going to talk about today, you want your short-term goals to be a stepping stone to your long-term goals. So those are the 3 boxes to check when you're thinking about your short-term goals. And, and honestly speaking, making sure that your short-term goals hit on those 3 things is kind of a prerequisite. If they don't, if they're unrealistic, if they're not focused, if they're not logical, really you're going to weed yourself out from the admissions process. So having, realistic and specific short-term goals is kind of a prerequisite, just to kind of, make the grade. But where you really are going to set yourself apart and impress the AdCom, get their attention, and really want to have you come to their program is in how you come up with and communicate your long-term goals. And that is why it is such an important thing to think about. I often hear from clients like, I don't know, that's, so far in the future, I don't know what I want to do or where I'm going to end up. And that's fine. I know your life can take a number of paths. You can't even plan, the next few months these days, it seems. But business schools are expecting that you have a vision of the impact that you want to have on your industry, on the world, and they want you to be able to put that out there. They understand that may not happen, but they are looking for people who have focus and purpose and, have really taken the time to reflect on what's important to them and what will make them happy in their career and be fulfilling to them. So that's why long-term goals matters. And, just to kind of the nitty-gritty of, what are long-term goals and how to think about them. So when the admissions committee says, what are your long-term ambitions, long-term goals, I've seen it a variety of different ways in applications. They're really talking about where you see yourself 10 to 15 years post-MBA, sort of the pinnacle of your career. Where are you really trying to make it? At what point will you feel like you've kind of made it? That is what your long-term goals that you communicate should be. And that's, that should be ambitious. That should be exciting. That should be something that, you're kind of scared might never happen. And that's okay. And that's why they're goals. And that's why they're, it's a vision and a plan. Leading to the second check mark I have here on this page, they should connect to your values and motivations, focusing on the impact that you want to have on your company, industry, or society. So, along with those, my point about, these can be pretty ambitious goals that are, a little scary and you're intimidated you might never achieve. And that's how you know that they're right. They should be driven by the impact that you want to have. Do you, really feel passionate about improving the educational technology space, and that's where you want to go, and you want to develop products that are going to make, learning more accessible to the broader population and or the world, that would be an impact that someone would want to have on society that they would actualize through their career. So that's what I'm kind of getting at with this middle bullet here. And to that point, they can be less specific than short-term goals, whereas a short-term goal would be, I want to be a consultant for McKinsey, Bain, or BCG after business school. That is specific. You name specific companies you want to work for, the specific role. Long-term goals can be a little more open-ended than that, although they should still be focused. You should know what industry you want to go into, what or end up in. You should know what general function you want to end up in, and how that role or that area, of work, be able to communicate why that specific function or area of work would be best to actualize the impact that you want to have on society. So those are sort of the three, criteria to define what long-term goals are. 10 to 15 years post MBA, they should connect to, your personal values and motivations and the impact that you hope to have. And then, while they can be slightly less specific than short-term goals, they should still have focus. All right, moving on. So 3 guiding principles here. Whereas on the last slide, we kind of defined what long-term goals are. Here, we're going to talk about how to make them great. So, the first guiding principle is, your future and your long-term goal should connect to your past, both in terms of skills and inspiration. And, what I'm really trying to get at here is you want the AdCom reading your application to really get the sense that your goals that you're laying out are authentic to you and rooted in experiences you've had in the past. At the end of the day, it's very hard to make the case that, you're passionate about education, to carry that example forward, and technology if you've never worked in the education sector before, or if you've never had personal experience either through an extracurricular or, your own experience, with educational technology. Why would they believe that that's a passion area for you? So, your long-term goals should connect to your past, both in terms of skills and inspiration. And this is how you ensure that they're authentic and convincing to the admissions committee. So, a good way to start brainstorming to ensure that you hit on number 1 with your long-term goals. Think back in your past. Think about college. Think about prior work experience. Think about extracurriculars. Think about times that you've really been energized and excited about what you're doing. Maybe it was when you were building out a new campus organization during undergrad that was giving back to a cause that you believed in. Maybe, while working at your current company, you are launching a new product and that process is really inspiring to you. So think about, those experiences that you've had that really, light a fire for you and bring out your passionate side. And think about what factor of that experience or project was so inspiring to you, and and perhaps you want to weave that into your long-term goals. That really ensures, and you can, as you communicate them in an essay, you can say, I want to do X, Y, and Z. That's my long-term vision. I know that because I had this experience in my past and I felt so energized. I felt so alive when I was doing it. I know that would, make me very satisfied in my long-term career. So that's number 1. Number 2, I think, is a concern that comes up often for people. They're concerned that a typical or a standard post-MBA path won't be inspiring enough to get them into the top program. So maybe someone worked in investment banking and then did a stint in PE before business school, and then, truly, authentically, their post MBA goals are to return to private equity and maybe, rise up the ranks there. Um, but, that's a very, you know, common, realistic goal, and where someone could be quite successful, and so it's reasonable to think that that would be, a long-term vision someone could have for their career. At the end of the day, these schools turn out a lot of finance people, so a lot of people do follow that path. They're clearly, the AdCom is clearly amenable to that trajectory, so it's okay to talk about a more standard path. But what really differentiates someone, that is pursuing a more standard path, I'll call it, makes them stand out from the pack, which is so important to getting into these super competitive programs, is that they take that standard path, but they personalize it a bit. Um, so, each industry has a number of specializations. So, to take the PE example, private equity firms a lot of times focus on specific industries for their investments, or maybe they have a particular investment philosophy that they follow, or a part of the world that they try to invest in. Um, so those are ways that you can take a pretty standard path, a competitive path, of course, and tailor it to your interests and your areas of expertise. Maybe it's a healthcare fund that you want to join, which will work off of your pre-MBA healthcare consulting experience or pre-MBA healthcare banking experience, something like that. But that healthcare element, that specialization, maybe that connects to a personal passion you have for healthcare. Maybe earlier in your life, you thought about becoming a doctor. You have a family of doctors, have always been passionate about the healthcare space. So that sort of brings together the personal and the professional, and makes your long-term goals specific to you, and will help you stand out from the pack. So the third guiding principle is that, to use a phrase, Rome wasn't built in a day. Your career goals shouldn't be either. And, this really gets to the fact that coming up with strong career goals that are personal, authentic, inspiring, aspirational, all the things that long-term career goals should be to be successful in an MBA application, it takes a lot of work. You know, the best goals I've seen come out of a lot of research, looking, for examples of MBA alums who, have followed a specific path. What steps did they take? Where did they end up? What impact are they having? Networking with alums, actually setting up those coffee chats, reading about leaders you admire in your industry, of choice, and the impact they're having, the way they lead, the way they go about it. I mean, doing a lot of research and your homework and having those conversations is really the only way that you can, get to a place where your goals are, authentic and well researched, and backed up by, a rationale that's convincing. And it's tough, but that is why these are, the things that help you stand out, and aren't, and again, with these, top business school programs with admissions rates, hovering around 10 or 15%, it's, you need to stand out. There are a lot of strong candidates out there. So, do your work. Don't jump to a conclusion about, what you think your long-term goals should be without researching a number of avenues, talking to people who have pursued a number of avenues, and then, really just taking a lot of time to reflect on what feels best for you. All right, so last, we're going to run through a few strong examples from past clients, and talk about how they hit on those guiding principles that we just covered off on. All right, so first, as an innate problem solver with a passion for developing relationships across cultures and backgrounds, my long-term goal is to raise a search fund where I can identify a scalable business and apply my leadership skills over an expanded time horizon. This will build on my time as a military officer, where I was challenged to lead through uncertainty, make data-driven decisions, and find solutions in diverse settings, as well as the foundational business principles learned at X school and experience applying these skills as a post-MBA management consultant. All right, so there's a lot to unpack here. So basically, this person's long-term vision is to raise a search fund, purchase a company, run it. So somewhat entrepreneurial, somewhat investment focused. And, the reason that the underlying motivations and values as to why he's so passionate about this path is that he loves problem solving, and bringing a diverse team together. He's had some super interesting experience and success with this in the military, and so he wants to utilize that leadership credibility that he's built over time to eventually seek out and run a business for himself. So that's sort of his long-term vision and the underlying motivations that have led him to that path. So it really makes sense. And, sort of the stepping stones that he's looking at, he has the military, it's great leadership, he needs the business foundations that he'll get at business school. He wants to apply them as a consultant post-MBA, and that's sort of how he's going to acquire all the skills he needs to be a successful search fund entrepreneur. So, with this, we don't really have to worry about guiding principle number 2. I mean, this is not a particularly standard path. It's something, certainly people do consider for their long-term goals, but it is pretty personalized to him. So definitely, personalized, definitely connects to his past, both, from an inspiration standpoint and also from, the tactical experience that he has and he brings to the table. And it's well researched. He had so many calls with, alums that had done search funds, alums that had done consulting, alums with military background from the programs that he was applying to. He talked to the campus organization for veterans at a number of schools. So he really, to learn about, careers that typically appealed and leveraged the skill sets of those with a military background. So he did so much research. He's currently about to start his MBA program. He got a very, very healthy scholarship and is going to a fantastic program that I think is a great fit for him. So it worked out well, but as you can see, this is a robust goal. It's not just a one-liner. It is something that is baked in true reflection, true research, and communicated and honed and refined, over time. So that's example 1. The second example I'll share is the following. Building on my core values of hard work, determination, and innovation, my experience in both consumer and technology strategy has sparked my fascination with consumer behavior, coupled with the thrill of cutting-edge technology. This intersection inspires my long-term goal of leading the strategy function of a consumer-facing technology company that disrupts an existing market like Airbnb or Stitch Fix. Taking risks by prioritizing change and disruption is something I plan to carry into my future career. So again, you can tell this is a robust goal. This candidate, throughout her life she has a number of experiences to draw upon where she's used her determination to achieve a goal and, achieve some really impressive things through hard work, consistent practice, and really being so determined. And so that's sort of one of the values that's underlying what she wants to do, because, working in strategy, trying to get, an earlier stage company off the ground, you face a lot of hurdles. It takes a lot of hard work, a lot of determination and belief in the product you're putting out there. So I think it's very fair to connect the values of hard work and determination to a career in startups or disruptive technology. Also innovation. She has some examples in her background of when she, truly innovated and changed, for instance, for her, this campus organization that she saw going in a different direction, she advocated for it and actualized it. So she's been very innovative in the past and taking a new spin on something that, maybe been set in its ways for a number of years. So she's innovative, drawing upon that as well. And then from a work standpoint, tactically, she had experience both in the consumer space as a consultant, and also she worked as a consultant right out of undergrad, and then took a job in tech, more in a internal strategy function. So she had experience in consumer, she had experience in tech, loved both of those, and what she found particularly compelling is where they intersected. And so as she was looking forward, she was, she's trying to find a role at the intersection of those and consumer facing technology. So, that hits on all of the things. It connects to her past, both from an inspiration standpoint, rooted in her values, and then also from a skill set standpoint. It's a personalized path. She wants to go into tech, which, obviously a lot of people do. It's a very common post MBA path, but she knows, the specific function she wants to target, the strategy function, the specific niche within tech. She's not just saying tech generally, she's saying disruptive consumer facing technology. So that is, honing in on the specific part of the tech sector that is her passion area. And again, well researched. So she talked to so many current students and alums. She, networked a ton, went to a ton of information sessions virtually, and a great success. She got in almost everywhere she applied with 2 full ride scholarship offers. So it was a really, successful application built on this long-term goal. All right, so next up, I will open it up to Q&A. I'll flip off my presentation so I can see the questions that are coming through in just a minute. But first, I wanted to share my contact info. Here's our website, my email address, and then I also wanted to mention that we're on Instagram. We post a lot of insightful, sort of insider content on there. For instance, this morning we just posted kind of an Ask Me Anything with a former AdCom who's on our team. She used to work at Chicago Booth. We're going to do a lot of those in the future. So, we can take questions and sort of get the down low from people who actually worked in admissions on how they view different types of profiles, different types of weaknesses, strengths, and applications. So there's a lot of great content on there. At Vantage_Point MBA is our username. Please follow us. I think you will enjoy what you see. All right, I'm going to stop sharing and take a handful of questions. All right, I see one question here. Will a career switch from civil engineering to an MBA cut down my chances of getting into a top 25 university? So I guess your question, I'm guessing, is civil engineering a reasonable background to help get you into business school? And I would say, it absolutely can be. I think the important thing is to come up with and communicate goals, post MBA goals, both short term and long term, that somehow leverage that civil engineering skill set. It doesn't have to be the technical skill set, but maybe it's, the engineering mindset, the way of thinking, work experience you've had. So yes, I think it absolutely can be, but it's all about how you craft the story to communicate to admissions committees the unique perspective you bring to the table that will be valuable to them in the MBA classroom, and how you plan to make your career play out post MBA. Ideally connecting back to the civil engineering background that you have. All right. Well, if I don't have any other questions, which is fine, I think I'm going to go ahead and sign off then. But again, you saw my email address. Feel free to post any comments on the YouTube comment section. I can get you my contact information again if you need it. But yeah, thank you so much to additional long-term interests other than I see 2 more questions pop up. Maybe I'll go back to these. If I want to improve, so what would be a direction for a good long-term goal if I want to improve the environment and more specifically health conditions in my hometown? So, I think it's sort of as specific to the type of impact you want to have. I mean, I could see this being an entrepreneurial long-term goal. So perhaps there's either, a nonprofit organization you want to start that could help actualize, this mission, or, maybe there's a business that you could start that could help, with healthcare or, living conditions. So yeah, I mean, I could see it going an entrepreneurial path. I could see it going, in the nonprofit impact space. So those are probably the two paths I would pursue. Perhaps, some maybe consulting to start, and then jumping off and doing something entrepreneurial. I could see that being a reasonable path for that type of goal. Okay, then last question here. Can we add additional long-term interests other than professional career in post-MBA goals? I truly think that business schools are talking professional here. Your professional goals should sort of inherently tie to your personal passions and interests. So I think they're somewhat related. I could see that if, maybe there was a cause you were passionate outside of a strictly professional capacity, like maybe advancing the women's career prospects or something, and you saw yourself coming up with an organization outside of work that would help do that. I mean, I think you could probably do that. I think you could probably talk about that a little bit, but I would gear this question to more of a career focused outlook. All right. Well, now I'm really ending it. Thank you very much for joining and for watching, for those who watched the recording. And thanks to GMAT Club for hosting. And here on the screen, you can see we do free 30-minute consultations if you want to chat with one of us and see how we can help you out with your applications, or just have a couple burning questions specific to you that you'd like to ask. All right. Thanks so much.